large hall in the Conservatory of Warsaw was filled to overflowing. All the music lovers of the city had come to hear young Frederic Chopin play his new concerto. He had been nervous all day, but now, as he sat at the piano waiting to begin, his fear left him. He was a frail youth with a pale face and chiseled features. He lifted his hands to the keys. The first tones of the piano part rang out with unexpected power. The audience listened, fascinated by this passionate, romantic music. Never before had anyone written for the piano in quite this way. A great hush filled the hall as the second theme floated through the air, a haunting, tender melody. The concert was a great success for Frederic. His parents and friends felt that the time had come for him to make his genius known. There was a gay banquet in his honor on the eve of his departure from Warsaw. Frederic was presented with a silver goblet filled with Polish earth, so that he would never forget his homeland. Deeply moved, he promised to keep it with him wherever he went. Best friend, Titus, Frederic set out on his journey. A silence fell between them as they sat in the carriage. Then Titus said, "You seem so sad, Frederic. Why?" "Titus, I have a strange feeling that I shall never see Poland again." "Of course you will, Frederic." "No, Titus. My heart tells me I shall never return." The two young men arrived in Vienna. There they received disturbing news. Warsaw had risen in rebellion against the soldiers of the Tsar. The Polish patriots were determined to throw off the yoke of their Russian masters. Titus decided to return at once to fight for his country. "I'll go with you, Titus. We'll fight side by side." "No, Frederic. You must stay here and go on with your music. You will serve our country in a better way, by carrying the name of Poland around the world." argued with Titus. He knew that his friend was right. He stayed behind with a heavy heart, while Titus left to join the rebellion. Frederic's musical gifts made a fine impression on the Viennese public, but he felt restless and sad in Vienna. He was worried over the fate of his family and friends. Finally, a letter arrived from his parents, telling him to continue his journey. He set out for Paris, which at that time was the musical center of the world. While he was on his journey, dreadful tidings arrived from Poland. The army of the Tsar had crushed the revolution. Warsaw was in the hands of the Russians. Frederic was stunned by the news. His grief found release in the flaming defiance of the revolutionary etude. Frederic remembered the songs of the peasants that he had heard in his childhood. Because Poland was in the heart of Europe, its songs and dances combined the almost oriental moods of East European music with the vigor and gaiety of the West. In his mazurkas, Frederic captured the spirit of Polish folk music, its capricious rhythms, its Slavic melancholy. When he came to Paris, Frederic had already written a number of his etudes, or studies. Until that time, study pieces were usually dull exercises intended to help the player develop his technique. Frederic transformed the etude into a piece filled with poetry and imagination. In each of his etudes, he dealt with another technical problem. Thus, in the gay butterfly etude, both hands have to play a light, crisp staccato. The harp etude is a study in broken chords, the notes of which are played in succession instead of together. Such chords are known as arpeggios. The melody is carried by the fourth and fifth fingers of the right hand. In the brilliant black key etude, Frederic dealt with the problem of playing rapidly on the black keys of the piano. Frederic was alone in Paris. He had no friends there. One night, as he was wandering along the boulevards, he heard a voice cry, "Frederic, what are you doing in Paris?" It was Prince Radziwill, a Polish nobleman who knew Frederick's family in Warsaw. How good it was to hear a voice from home. "I came here, Prince, hoping to play my music. But it is very difficult for me, as I don't know anyone in Paris. I cannot decide what to do next. Perhaps I'll go on to London." "Nonsense." The prince took Frederick by the arm. "Once the Parisians hear you play, they will worship you. I'm on my way to the Baroness Rothschild. Come with me." They arrived at a huge marble palace. The prince led Frederick into the splendid drawing room and presented him to the Baroness. Before long, she asked him to play. Everyone fell silent as he sat down at the piano. He played his waltz in C-sharp minor. Prince Radziwill was right. Soon all Paris was talking of the aristocratic-looking young man from Poland who wrote music such as had never been heard before. Chopin settled in Paris, where he found a stimulating atmosphere for his work. He became friendly with the leading artists of the city. the pianist-composer Franz Liszt, the novelist Victor Hugo, the painter Eugene Delacroix. These men and their comrades were creating a new art filled with the spirit of Romanticism. Chopin took his place among them. Composers before Chopin had written not only piano pieces, but also operas and oratorios, symphonies, string quartets, and other types of music. Chopin was the first composer whose genius found complete expression through the piano. In several of his large works, as in his scherzos, he revealed the piano's capacity for intensely dramatic expression, with striking contrasts between the low and high registers. Again and again, Chopin turned for inspiration to the songs and dances of his homeland. In the Polonaise, he revived the stately processional dance with which the nobles of Poland in former times greeted their kings. The Polonaise shows the heroic side of Chopin's art. In these stirring pieces, he becomes the national poet, reminding his countrymen of their ancient glory and promising them that they will be free again. Unlike his friend Liszt, Chopin did not like to play in public. "The crowd embarrasses me," he told Liszt. "I feel stifled by their breathing, paralyzed by their curious glances." He preferred the intimate atmosphere of the drawing room, where countesses sat spellbound as he played. In his waltzes, Chopin captured the elegance and grace of the aristocratic world of Paris. A favorite is the Minute Waltz. many of his waltzes, Chopin used a simple three-part structure in which the first and third part were alike, while the middle section introduced a contrast. This pattern is known as the ABA form. The middle section is in a more lyrical mood. Now we hear again the first part, which makes a symmetrical form. One of Chopin's favorite forms was the Nocturne. The word Nocturne means a night piece, a melody in the character of a love song. One evening, Franz Liszt introduced Chopin to the most famous French woman of her time, the Baroness Dudevant, who wrote novels under the name of George Sand. From the moment he met her, Chopin felt drawn to her strong, dominating personality. A deep friendship developed between them. Chopin loved to play his nocturnes for George Sand. Several of them presented a heartfelt melody in the right hand against a simple accompaniment of broken chords in the left. George Sand realized that Chopin was not strong and needed someone to take care of him. One day she said to him, "Frederic, I am taking my children to Mallorca for the winter. Why don't you come with us? The warm sunshine will do you good." "What a wonderful idea," he replied. A few days later, Frederic set out with Madame Sand and her young son and daughter. A short trip across the Mediterranean brought them to the island of Mallorca. They settled in a deserted monastery that had a garden full of oranges and lemons. Here Chopin completed a set of 24 preludes. Some of these pieces are no more than half a page in length, yet they are complete works of art in miniature, moods, fancies, visions. Another immortal half-page is the Prelude in C minor, whose 3 phrases consist of a solemn procession of chords. Certain preludes are restless and tumultuous, like the one Chopin marked molto agitato, extremely agitated. In this piece, the melody is carried by the thumb of the right hand, while the other fingers play a rapid figuration above it. During their days together in Mallorca, George Sand had an opportunity to observe how Chopin worked. His creative power, she wrote, was spontaneous, miraculous. But then came the most heart-rending labor I have ever seen. He would shut himself in his room for days, pacing up and down, rewriting one measure 100 times. He would spend 6 weeks over a page, only to write it out finally just The Prelude in D minor is marked allegro appassionato, fast and impassioned. The left hand plays widely spread arpeggios, against which the right hand unfolds a somber melody that is wild and impetuous. During the next years, Chopin spent his summers at George Sand's chateau in the country. Safe from the noise and the distractions of Paris, he wrote some of his greatest works, such as the Ballade in G minor. His health grew steadily worse. The doctors realized that he was suffering from tuberculosis, but there was little they could do for him. George Sand nursed him tenderly. Sustained by her affection, he continued to compose. But despite their love for each other, disagreements mounted between them. Madame Sand, although she was born an aristocrat, held radical views in politics. She joined those who were planning a revolution against the Bourbon king, Louis Philippe. Chopin, on the other hand, was strongly conservative. Nor was this the only way in which their personalities clashed. Finally, the friendship ended in bitterness. Chopin was brokenhearted. After he parted from George Sand, Chopin no longer had the same hold on life. His strength was ebbing away. He composed no more. He spent some months in England and Scotland and returned to Paris mortally ill. He died shortly after, at the age of 39. Artists in Paris came to his funeral. George Sand stayed away, and on his grave, a friend scattered the Polish earth from the silver goblet that he had carried with him on his journey, so that he might be reunited at last with his beloved homeland. For his countrymen, Frederic Chopin embodies the genius of Poland. For the rest of the world, he lives on among the immortals as the poet of the piano.